Today's episode of The World After Coronavirus, we have with us Professor Perry Mehrling. Perry is a colleague and is with us here at the Pardee School of Global Studies at Boston University. And we're going to ask him about what the future of money might be in a post-COVID world.
There are three questions, okay? One is using money to stop the bleeding. And by that, I mean the financial crisis and turmoil that we're experiencing in the last few weeks. The second is winning the war, okay, which is the war against coronavirus, but without destroying our economy. And that's a delicate balance. But most important, and I want to spend some time on this, is winning the peace, the reconstruction that comes after war. Stopping the bleeding. The financial crisis that was happening in the last 2 weeks, I describe as a dash for cash, as many agents in the world, all around the world, found themselves suddenly with no income, and yet with the same cash commitments that they had had before. And that led them to try to borrow, to try to liquidate, to try to cash in their treasury bills. The Fed has stepped up to the plate in a very ambitious and appropriate way because it can create cash. So it is buying those treasury bills, it is lending money to foreign central banks, it is supporting that dash to cash not only in the United States, but also globally. That does mean that the future of money in terms of the international monetary system, I think, will be the dollar. Okay, that we have seen in this experience that we need a managed international monetary system, and that the Fed knows what it's doing so far. To win the war is also going to require considerable finance issues. The recent $2 trillion is about halting the liquidation that's happening of businesses that are closed, restaurants, but also larger businesses. That's keeping the economy going, but really just on life support. That's not reconstruction. Mobilizing the resources to fight this virus is also a very significant economic challenge, as we've seen, moving ventilators around, producing more of them. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Financially speaking, organizationally speaking, winning the war is not something that is necessarily going to happen quickly. But winning the peace, I think it's time to start thinking about that. And you see many ideas today in conversation. I think there's a strong push you can see in some of the measures for fighting the war toward deglobalization, toward retreating to national boundaries. Even inside Europe, which we sort of thought of as a country, turns out that it's not a country. And we even see this in the United States. There's been some attempt to wall off New York or to retreat to state borders or something like that. So deglobalization is a very possible future, but I think something to be avoided. Globalization has in general been good for the global south, for the periphery, and what we need is reglobalization after this separation, thinking about what kind of supply chains make sense, what kinds of patterns of the economy, how are these economies going to be knit together, what is the international division of labor going to be. It is going to require a cooperative effort among the United Nations to reconstruct the global system, and that's a huge political challenge because we do see the retreat to nationalism, the abandonment of democracy, the notion that only a strong man can save us. You know, this is everywhere in the world. It's everywhere in the world, but it doesn't have to be. I think the world can be reconstructed, and I think we were moving in this strongman mode even before coronavirus. And so maybe coronavirus will make us realize that the political direction we were drifting toward, okay, is something we want to move the opposite. The last thing I would point to, there's going to be big social changes, I think, after this too, okay? The people on the front lines who have kept this thing going, of course, the doctors, nurses, okay, but I'm also talking about the delivery men. You know, when the crisis is over, we owe a debt to the people who helped us when times were tough. And they're going to also be harder hit I think there's going to be great attention to reconstructing our healthcare system, for example. But more generally, I think social welfare, and so society will be transformed. I think permanently by this, and this notion of returning to status quo ante is, I think, not possible.